My dear friends, I want you to start a discussion with me about the Church of God. The Church of God on earth. How will it keep going and growing in future? So maybe there's a lot of doom and gloom about the Church of God. But let's see what happened a long time ago in the book of Exodus on how God brought his people out of slavery and made them a new nation. So we're going to start to read from Exodus, and we're going to do a little bit of passages from Exodus. We're going to go with a journey through Exodus, and we're going to discuss a lot about the book of Exodus. So the Israelites are treated cruelly in Egypt. So let's read from Exodus 1, and we're going to read the first chapter. The sons of Jacob who went to Egypt with him, each of his family, were Reuben, Simon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The total number of these people directly descended from Jacob was 70. His son Joseph was already in Egypt. In the course of time, Joseph, his brothers, and all the rest of that generation died. But their descendants, the Israelites, had many children and became so numerous and strong that Egypt was filled with them. Then a new king, who knew nothing about Joseph, came to power in Egypt, and he said to his people, "These Israelites are so numerous and strong that they are a threat to us. In case of war, they might join our enemies in order to fight against us and might escape from the country. We must find some way to keep them from becoming even more numerous." So the Egyptians put slave drivers over them to crush their spirits with hard labor. The Israelites built cities of Pithom and Ramses to serve as supply centers for the king. But the more the Egyptians oppressed the Israelites, the more they increased in number, and the further they spread through the land. The Egyptians came to fear the Israelites and made their lives miserable by forcing them into cruel slavery. They made them work on their building projects and in their fields, and they had no mercy on them. Then the king of Egypt spoke to Shiphrah and Puah, the two midwives who helped Hebrew women. "When you help the Hebrew woman give birth," he said to them, "kill the baby if it's a boy. But if it's a girl, let it live." But the midwives feared God and so did not obey the king. Instead, they let the boys live. So the king sent for the midwives and asked them, "Why are you doing this? Why are you letting the boys live?" They answered, "The Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They give birth easily, and their babies are born before either of us gets there." Because the midwives feared God, he was good to them and gave them families of their own. And the Israelites continued to increase and become strong. Finally, the king issued a command to all his people: "Take every newborn Hebrew boy and throw him into the Nile, but let the girls live." Now, friends, this is a very interesting passage, and there's a lot of history in it, and I'm so fond of history, so I would have liked to give you a history lesson about Egypt at that time, and I can't get enough of the Egyptians and what they've done, and all the grand projects they had. So the beautiful thing about the Bible and about the way God revealed himself to us, it's always it is built into history. So you can't get away from history when you're busy with God, because the important thing about why it's embedded in history is that it's not an idea that just flew from somebody or one or another clever philosopher thought about this. It is something that God created. It's a fact. um, nobody can actually deny the fact that in that time in Egypt there were grand projects that were built. Now, the towns that are mentioned in this book is the towns of Pithom and what is the other city? Ramses. That is the cities, big cities that were built by the Israelites. And it's very hard to find the exact spot where these cities were built and exactly when, also in what time slot they were built. But if you look at the two cities, the best possibility is that this was all built on the site of Avaris. Now you can Google Avaris and see that Avaris was one of the biggest cities in the world at that time, the most beautiful cities in the world at that time. And that's probably where the Israelites lived and where Joseph lived. We're not sure. There is a statue of somebody that looks like Joseph. There are 12 small tombs there that looks like it was the brothers. They're buried together. We don't know. But the fact of the matter is, if you look, you'll see that big projects were going on at the time, and they obviously needed people to build or help them. They needed slaves. Now, any king can make his own people slaves as well, or they can get slaves from elsewhere in the world. If they go on big wars, they can bring back prisoners of war, make them slaves in their own country, and use them to build whatever projects they want. So in Egypt, this probably both of these worked, because they were big expansions from the pharaohs at that stage, and they went into actually as far as the Euphrates. They fought as far as the Euphrates. So they could have been brought back a lot of people as slaves to work for them. And on the other side, the Hebrews that were in Egypt at that time could also be used as slaves. So there's no doubt that there were slaves of some other races in Egypt at the time. And we believe that the Israelites were there, and that they were physically working. And as I said, you could have, maybe it's hard to plot the exact place where this happened, the exact towns where this happened, and the exact dates it happened. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is that God worked in a time that we can access, that we can understand, that we can have other sources as well to say, up that is exactly what happened during that time. As if we read Exodus 1, it makes sense, yes, that the Israelites, they were the people, they were part of these slaves that worked in Egypt long ago. And now it's very interesting that God decided to start a group of people that you can call his church already at that time. So the nation of Israel was actually the first church that we have, because that's the way that God wanted to bring salvation to the world. Remember, the ambition of God, the love of God for the world is that he wants to bring salvation to the whole world. And remember that Abraham, Jacob, Isaac, they were not part of a church. They didn't go to a church. They were not part of a congregation. They didn't have a minister of religion to pray for them or to do home visits to them. They had a personal relationship with God, a beautiful personal relationship with God, all of them. And it was this beautiful personal relationship with God they had, the faith in God they had, that also brought them eventually to Egypt, and where they started then